The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Prince William adjusted his tie for the third time. His hands trembled slightly, a detail he hoped Kate hadn't noticed as she sat at her dressing table carefully applying her lipstick. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken words and mounting tension that had been building for weeks. Kate caught his reflection in her mirror and offered a small, strained smile. "You look handsome," she said softly, though her voice carried none of its usual warmth. William nodded, unable to trust his voice to respond appropriately. Today was supposed to be a celebration, a grand charity event that would showcase their united front as the future King and Queen of England. Instead, it felt like they were preparing for battle. The charity gala had been planned for months. It was Kate's pet project, focusing on mental health awareness for young people. She had poured her heart into every detail, from the guest list to the menu selection. William had supported her efforts publicly, but privately, their relationship had been crumbling under the weight of royal expectations and personal disappointments that neither dared to voice aloud. Their marriage had always been under scrutiny, but lately, the pressure had become unbearable. Whispers in the corridors of the palace suggested that all was not well with the golden couple. Staff members had noticed the separate breakfast meetings, the lack of spontaneous laughter that once echoed through their private quarters, and the careful way they now spoke to each other, as if every word was being weighed for its potential to cause harm. Kate stood up from her dressing table, smoothing down her elegant navy dress. The designer gown hugged her figure perfectly, but she felt uncomfortable in her own skin. She had lost weight over the past month, though she attributed it to stress rather than anything more serious. William watched her movements, remembering when such simple gestures would have filled him with joy and pride. Now they only reminded him of the growing distance between them. "The car will be here in 10 minutes, William announced, checking his watch. His voice was formal, the same tone he used during official functions. Kate nodded, gathering her clutch and checking her appearance one final time. She had become an expert at hiding her emotions behind a mask of royal composure, a skill that served her well in public, but left her feeling isolated in private moments like these. As they prepared to leave their private quarters, both were acutely aware that they would soon have to perform their roles as the perfect royal couple. Cameras would capture their every gesture, reporters would analyze their body language, and the public would judge whether their fairy tale romance was still intact. The irony was not lost on either of them, that they were about to attend an event focused on mental health while struggling with their own emotional well-being. William's mind wandered to the conversation they had attempted the night before. It had started as a discussion about their upcoming schedule, but quickly devolved into accusations and hurt feelings. Kate had expressed her frustration about feeling like she was losing herself in the role of royal wife, while William had defended the institution that had shaped his entire life. Neither had been willing to back down, and they had gone to bed in angry silence. The weight of their public responsibilities had always been challenging, but recently, it felt crushing. Every public appearance required them to project happiness and unity, even when they could barely have a civil conversation in private. Their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, had become unwitting witnesses to the tension, asking innocent questions about why Mummy and Daddy seemed sad lately. Kate picked up a framed photograph from her dresser, one taken during their engagement announcement years ago. Their faces glowed with genuine happiness and excitement about their future together. She wondered where that couple had gone and whether they could ever find their way back to each other. The photograph represented a time when their love seemed capable of conquering any obstacle, including the unique challenges of royal life. William noticed her looking at the photo and felt a familiar pang of regret. He remembered that day clearly. How nervous he had been about proposing, how radiant Kate had looked when she said yes, how certain they both were that their love would be enough to weather any storm. The reality of royal marriage had proved more complex than either had anticipated. Their relationship had survived many challenges over the years: the intense media scrutiny, the demands of royal protocol, the loss of privacy that came with their positions. But this current crisis felt different, more fundamental. It wasn't about external pressures anymore. It was about who they had become as individuals and whether those people could still find happiness together. As they walked toward the palace entrance where their car waited, Kate reached for William's hand out of habit. The gesture surprised them both, and for a moment they felt a spark of their old connection. His fingers intertwined with hers automatically, muscle memory overriding the emotional barriers they had built between themselves. The palace staff they encountered along their route offered respectful greetings, but Kate noticed the concerned looks in their eyes. These people had served the royal family for decades. They could sense when something was amiss. The pretense was becoming harder to maintain, even within the walls of their own home. William squeezed Kate's hand gently as they approached the main entrance. Whatever was happening between them privately, they both understood that their public duty came first. They would smile for the cameras, engage warmly with the guests, and present a united front for the sake of the monarchy and the important cause they were there to support. But as they stepped outside into the bright morning light, both wondered how much longer they could maintain this facade. The cracks in their relationship were becoming harder to hide, and they both feared what would happen if the public discovered the truth about their struggles. The pressure to be perfect was suffocating them, and neither knew how to break free without causing irreparable damage to everything they had worked to build together. The black Range Rover glided through London streets as William and Kate sat in tense silence. Their protection officers maintained professional composure in the front seats, but even they could sense the unusual atmosphere. Normally, the couple would use travel time to discuss the event ahead, or share quiet moments together. Today, they stared out opposite windows, each lost in their own troubled thoughts. Kate's phone buzzed with a text from her private secretary confirming final details for the gala. She scrolled through the agenda mechanically, trying to focus on her responsibilities rather than the emotional turmoil churning inside her. The event would begin with a reception, followed by dinner and speeches, then conclude with a charity auction. She had rehearsed her own speech dozens of times, but now doubted her ability to deliver it convincingly while her personal life felt so uncertain. William noticed Kate checking her phone and felt a familiar stab of irritation. Lately, it seemed like she was always busy with something. Charity work, public engagements, or personal projects that didn't include him. He recognized the unfairness of his resentment. Her dedication to public service was one of the qualities he had always admired about her, but somewhere along the way that admiration had been overshadowed by feelings of neglect and isolation within their own marriage. The charity gala was being held at the Natural History Museum, one of London's most prestigious venues. As their car approached the building, they could see the red carpet lined with photographers and reporters. The familiar sight should have filled them with anticipation, but instead it felt like approaching an execution. They would have to perform flawlessly for the next several hours, pretending their relationship was as solid as the day they married. Their protection detail received confirmation that everything was ready for their arrival. Kate took a deep breath and checked her reflection in her compact mirror one final time. Her makeup artist had done excellent work covering the dark circles under her eyes, evidence of too many sleepless nights spent questioning her choices and wondering about her future. She applied fresh lipstick with steady hands, a practiced routine that helped her transition into her public persona. William straightened his shoulders and mentally prepared for the onslaught of attention. He had been performing royal duties since childhood, but it never became easier when personal struggles were weighing heavily on his mind. The irony of promoting mental health awareness while feeling emotionally disconnected from his own wife wasn't lost on him. He wondered if the guests would be able to see through their carefully constructed facade. As the car came to a stop, William and Kate exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Without words, they acknowledged the challenge ahead and silently agreed to set aside their personal issues for the sake of their duty. It was a survival mechanism they had developed over years of public service, but using it against each other felt like a betrayal of their marriage vows. The car door opened, and the sounds of the waiting crowd immediately filled the vehicle. Camera flashes began before they were even fully visible, creating a strobe effect that felt almost violent in its intensity. William stepped out first, then turned to help Kate from the car. The simple gesture of offering his hand felt significant given their current state, a small acknowledgement that they were still partners in this public theater, even if their private relationship was struggling. Kate's smile appeared instantly as she emerged from the car, bright and genuine looking despite her inner turmoil. Years of practice had made her expert at projecting warmth and accessibility. She waved to the crowd of well-wishers gathered behind barriers, her gesture graceful and seemingly heartfelt. William stood beside her, his own public smile in place, one hand positioned protectively on her lower back in a gesture that photographers would interpret as loving devotion. The couple moved down the red carpet at a measured pace, stopping to speak with selected journalists and photographers. Their interactions appeared natural and unscripted, though every word had been carefully considered by their communications team. Kate spoke passionately about the evening's cause, her genuine commitment to mental health advocacy shining through despite her personal struggles. William nodded supportively at appropriate moments, playing his role as the devoted husband perfectly. Inside the museum, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Britain's social elite mingled with celebrities, politicians, and business leaders, all united in their support for Kate's mental health initiative. The venue had been transformed into an elegant dinner setting, with dramatic lighting highlighting the museum's stunning architecture. Fresh flowers adorned every table, and soft classical music created an ambiance of refined sophistication. Kate was immediately surrounded by well-wishers and supporters, eager to discuss the charity's important work. Her face lit up with genuine enthusiasm as she engaged with guests who shared stories about how mental health resources had impacted their lives or the lives of their children. For these moments, her personal troubles faded into the background as she connected with the cause that had become so meaningful to her. William found himself in conversation with several prominent business leaders who were major donors to the charity. He spoke eloquently about the importance of breaking down stigmas surrounding mental health, drawing on his own experiences with military veterans and his work with emergency responders. His passion for these issues was authentic, even if his ability to apply the same openness to his own marriage remained elusive. As the evening progressed, both William and Kate fell into familiar rhythms of royal engagement. They moved through the crowd with practiced ease, making each person they spoke with feel important and heard. Their training in public relations served them well, allowing them to compartmentalize their personal struggles while fulfilling their professional obligations with apparent enthusiasm and grace. However, close observers might have noticed subtle differences in their usual dynamic. They didn't seek each other out across crowded rooms with their eyes as they once had. When they were photographed together, their body language, while appropriate, lacked the natural intimacy that had characterized their earlier public appearances. They were performing their roles competently, but the spontaneous joy that had once made them such compelling public figures was noticeably absent. The evening's program was carefully choreographed to maximize both the charitable impact and the positive publicity for the royal family. Kate's speech was scheduled as the highlight of the dinner portion, while William would participate in the charity auction that would close the evening. Both events would require them to appear completely united and supportive of each other, a challenge given the emotional distance they had been experiencing in private. As dinner was announced and guests began moving toward their assigned tables, Kate felt her anxiety increase. Soon she would have to stand before hundreds of people and speak about mental health, vulnerability, and the importance of seeking help when struggling. The irony of her situation, advocating for openness about mental health while hiding her own emotional struggles, felt almost overwhelming. She caught William's eye across the room and saw something that might have been understanding, or perhaps just shared apprehension about the evening ahead. The dinner service began with elegant precision as waitstaff moved silently between tables at the Natural History Museum. Kate sat beside William at the head table, acutely aware of every gesture being observed and potentially photographed by the discreet media presence allowed at the event. She picked at her starter course, her appetite having disappeared weeks ago, along with her ability to sleep peacefully through the night. Conversation flowed around their table as fellow guests discussed everything from recent political developments to upcoming social events. Kate participated appropriately, offering thoughtful comments and asking engaging questions, but part of her felt detached from the scene, as if she were watching herself perform from outside her own body. The skills that had once come naturally now required conscious effort, leaving her emotionally exhausted by the constant performance. William engaged in a spirited discussion about conservation efforts with a prominent environmentalist seated across from them. His passion for the subject was genuine and provided a welcome distraction from the tension he felt sitting beside his wife. They had shared so many similar evenings over the years, working as a team to advance causes they both cared about. The memory of their former partnership made the current distance between them even more painful. As the main course was served, Kate excused herself briefly to review her speech notes one final time. She made her way to a quiet alcove near the museum's famous dinosaur exhibits, seeking a moment of privacy to collect herself. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was surrounded by the remains of creatures that had failed to adapt to changing circumstances. She wondered if her marriage was facing a similar extinction, unable to evolve with the pressures that threatened to destroy it. Her private secretary appeared beside her, offering final updates and reassurances about the evening's remaining schedule. Kate nodded at the appropriate moments, but her mind was focused on the speech she would soon deliver. The words she had written were heartfelt and important, discussing the need for young people to feel safe seeking help for mental health challenges. She believed deeply in the message, which made her own inability to address her marital problems feel like hypocrisy. Returning to the dinner, Kate found William deep in conversation with their table companions about his upcoming trip to several Commonwealth nations. She had originally been scheduled to accompany him, but recent scheduling conflicts had created an excuse for her to remain in London. Both of them had been secretly relieved by this development, though neither would admit it openly. The thought of spending weeks together while maintaining their public facade felt overwhelming. The dinner conversation turned to family life, with guests sharing stories about their children and the challenges of balancing professional responsibilities with parenting. Kate and William contributed appropriately to the discussion, describing their pride in George, Charlotte, and Louis and their efforts to provide them with as normal a childhood as possible, given their unique circumstances. Their words were true, but they carefully avoided mentioning how their marital struggles were affecting their ability to present a united front for their children. As the dinner plates were cleared away, Kate felt her anxiety spike. Her speech was moments away, and she would soon have to stand before hundreds of people and discuss vulnerability, honesty, and the importance of seeking help when struggling. The preparation she had done felt inadequate as she contemplated the gap between her public message and her private reality. She took a sip of water, hoping to calm her nerves and clear her throat for the speaking engagement ahead. William reached over and squeezed her hand briefly under the table, a gesture that surprised them both. It was the first spontaneous physical contact they had shared in weeks that wasn't for the benefit of cameras or public observation. For a moment, Kate felt a flicker of the connection they had once shared, the partnership that had sustained them through so many challenges in their early years together. She squeezed back gently before pulling her hand away to applaud as their host began introducing her. The applause was warm and enthusiastic as Kate rose from her seat and made her way to the podium. The lighting was perfect, casting a soft glow that the photographers would capture beautifully for tomorrow's newspapers and magazines. She looked poised and confident, every inch the future queen that the public expected her to be. Only she knew how much effort it took to project such composure, while her inner world felt chaotic and uncertain. Beginning her speech, Kate spoke about the importance of mental health awareness with genuine passion and conviction. Her words resonated with the audience as she shared statistics about youth mental health challenges and described the programs her charity was funding to address these critical needs. She discussed the stigma that prevented young people from seeking help and the role that trusted adults could play in creating safe spaces for vulnerable teenagers. As she continued speaking, Kate found herself drawing on emotions that were closer to the surface than she had intended. Her voice carried a depth of feeling that came from her own recent experiences with isolation and emotional struggle. Even though she couldn't acknowledge that connection publicly, the audience was clearly moved by her authenticity, responding with enthusiasm to her calls for increased support and understanding for mental health initiatives. William watched his wife deliver her speech with a mixture of pride and sorrow. She was magnificent in her role, commanding the room with grace and intelligence while advocating for causes that mattered deeply to both of them. He remembered falling in love with her passion and commitment to making a difference in the world. Seeing that same quality displayed so powerfully reminded him of what they had built together and what they stood to lose if they couldn't find their way back to each other. Kate's speech concluded with a call to action, challenging the guests to not only provide financial support, but to engage personally in breaking down barriers, that prevented young people from accessing mental health resources. The applause was sustained and heartfelt, with many guests rising to their feet in appreciation of her message. She smiled graciously while accepting the recognition, though part of her felt like a fraud for advocating so eloquently for something she was struggling to practice in her own life. Returning to her seat beside William, Kate felt emotionally drained from the performance. Even though her speech had been successful by any measure, the positive response from the audience should have energized her, but instead she felt the familiar weight of maintaining appearances while her private world remained unresolved. William offered quiet congratulations, and she thanked him with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The evening's program continued with the charity auction, during which William would play a prominent role in encouraging generous bidding for items that would raise significant funds for mental health programs. As the auction items were presented and described, both Kate and William prepared for the final phase of their public performance, knowing that they would soon return home to face the silence and distance that had become the reality of their private relationship. The success of the evening was already apparent in the enthusiastic participation of the guests and the substantial funds being raised for mental health initiatives. From a professional standpoint, Kate's event was achieving all of its objectives. The personal cost of maintaining their public facade while their marriage struggled remained hidden from the celebrating crowd, a burden that both William and Kate carried with increasing difficulty as the evening progressed toward its conclusion. The charity auction commenced with impressive energy, as William took his place near the auctioneer's podium. His natural charisma and easy humor made him an effective advocate for the various lots being offered, from exclusive vacation packages to private dinners with celebrities. The crowd responded enthusiastically to his participation, with bidding reaching levels that exceeded even the most optimistic projections Kate had made during the planning process. Kate watched from her table as William worked the room with practiced ease, encouraging competitive bidding while maintaining the light-hearted atmosphere that made such events successful. His ability to connect with people had always been one of his greatest strengths, whether he was engaging with heads of state or ordinary citizens encountering the royal family for the first time. Seeing him in his element reminded her of the qualities that had initially attracted her to him years ago, before the weight of their responsibilities had begun to strain their relationship. A particularly valuable lot came up for auction, a week-long stay at a private estate in Scotland that had been donated by one of their longtime supporters. William shared amusing anecdotes about similar properties he had visited during his youth, drawing laughter from the audience while skillfully driving up the bidding. Kate found herself genuinely smiling for the first time that evening, momentarily forgetting their personal troubles as she watched him demonstrate the charm and wit that had won her heart during their university days. The successful conclusion of that particular auction lot brought thunderous applause and a winning bid that far exceeded expectations. William caught Kate's eye from across the room and flashed her a genuine smile of shared triumph. For a brief moment, they felt like the team they had once been, united in purpose and celebrating their joint success. The feeling was bittersweet, highlighting what they had lost while offering a glimpse of what might still be possible between them if they could find a way to bridge the growing emotional distance. As the auction continued, Kate found her mind wandering to their earlier years together, when events like this felt purely celebratory rather than emotionally exhausting. She remembered the excitement they had shared when planning their first major charity initiative as a married couple, the late nights spent discussing strategy and goals, the sense of partnership that had made even the most challenging aspects of royal life feel manageable. Those memories felt like scenes from someone else's life now, separated from their current reality by months of accumulated hurt and misunderstanding. The evening's most prestigious auction item was presented near the end, a private tour of normally restricted areas of Buckingham Palace, followed by afternoon tea with William and Kate themselves. The significance of offering their personal time as an auction lot wasn't lost on either of them, representing both their commitment to the charity and their willingness to sacrifice privacy for important causes. The bidding for this unique opportunity was fierce, with several prominent philanthropists competing for the exclusive experience. William handled the auction of their personal time with appropriate gravity while maintaining the entertaining atmosphere the crowd expected. He spoke movingly about the importance of the mental health programs their charity supported, making the case that the winning bidder would not only enjoy a memorable experience, but would also contribute to life-changing resources for young people in crisis. His words carried genuine conviction, drawing on his own experiences with individuals who had benefited from similar programs. When the bidding concluded at a record-breaking amount, the entire room erupted in applause. Kate joined the standing ovation, feeling genuinely proud of what they had accomplished together that evening. The financial success of the auction would translate directly into expanded mental health services for thousands of young people, a tangible result that made all the personal cost of the evening feel worthwhile. She caught William's eye again and nodded her appreciation for his skillful handling of the challenging task. As the formal portion of the evening concluded, guests began transitioning to a more informal reception, where they could continue conversations and enjoy after-dinner drinks. Kate and William moved through the crowd together, accepting congratulations and discussing the evening's success with key supporters and organizers. Their public partnership appeared seamless, but both were acutely aware of the effort required to maintain the appearance of unity while feeling emotionally disconnected from each other. Several guests approached Kate individually to share personal stories about family members who had struggled with mental health challenges. These conversations were deeply meaningful to her, reinforcing why she had chosen to focus her charitable efforts on this particular cause. The genuine gratitude expressed by parents whose children had benefited from programs similar to those her charity supported provided emotional fuel that had been lacking in other areas of her life recently. William found himself engaged in discussion with several military veterans who had participated in mental health programs he had championed through his own charitable work. Their stories of recovery and resilience reminded him of the real-world impact that their public roles could achieve when focused on meaningful causes. The conversation provided a welcome reminder that his life's work extended far beyond the ceremonial aspects of being a future king, encompassing opportunities to make genuine differences in people's lives. As the evening wound down, both William and Kate began the gradual process of taking leave from their guests. This required careful choreography, ensuring they spoke with all the most important supporters and donors while gradually moving toward their eventual departure. The process took nearly an hour, during which they maintained their public personas while privately dreading the return to their car and the inevitable silence that would accompany their journey home. Their final photographs of the evening captured them standing together, beside a display highlighting the mental health programs that would benefit from the funds raised. Kate's smile was radiant, and William's arm around her waist appeared natural and affectionate. The images would run in newspapers and magazines worldwide, reinforcing the public perception of their strong marriage and shared commitment to important causes. Only they knew how much distance existed behind their carefully constructed public image. Walking toward their waiting car, Kate reflected on the evening's success and her own complicated feelings about it. The charity had exceeded all fundraising goals. Her speech had been well received, and the media coverage would undoubtedly be positive. By any professional measure, the event had been a triumph. Yet she felt hollow inside, as if the success belonged to someone else rather than representing a genuine personal accomplishment. William experienced similar conflicted emotions as they approached their departure. He was proud of Kate's work organizing such a successful event, and grateful for the opportunity to contribute meaningfully to important mental health initiatives. But the evening had also highlighted how effectively they could still function as a professional partnership while struggling to connect as husband and wife. The contrast between their public success and private difficulties felt increasingly unsustainable. Their protection officers opened the car doors, and William and Kate settled into the back seat for their journey home to Kensington Palace. The immediate relief of dropping their public facades was tempered by the knowledge that they would now have to face each other without the buffer of royal duties and charitable responsibilities. The successful evening behind them only emphasized how much effort they were putting into every aspect of their lives, except their relationship with each other. As London's streets passed by their windows, both wondered how long they could continue maintaining such an elaborate performance, while their marriage slowly deteriorated in private. The evening had demonstrated their continued ability to work together professionally and their shared commitment to causes larger than themselves. Whether those foundations were strong enough to rebuild their personal connection, remained an open question that neither was ready to address directly. The drive back to Kensington Palace felt longer than usual as William and Kate sat in contemplative silence. The evening's success had created a temporary respite from their personal tensions, but now that they were alone again, the weight of unspoken issues settled between them like an unwelcome passenger. Streetlights cast intermittent shadows through the car windows, creating a pattern of light and darkness that seemed to mirror the state of their relationship. Kate stared out at the familiar London landmarks, thinking about how different this journey felt compared to similar evenings in their earlier years together. She remembered rides home from charity events when they would excitedly discuss the evening's highlights, share observations about interesting guests they had met, or simply enjoy the comfortable silence that came from being perfectly content in each other's company. Tonight's silence felt heavy and charged, filled with all the conversations they weren't having. William checked his phone for messages from their children's nanny, confirming that George, Charlotte, and Louis had settled into bed without any issues. The routine update should have brought him comfort, but instead, it reminded him of how their family dynamics had been affected by the tension between him and Kate. The children hadn't said anything directly, but he had noticed their increased sensitivity to the atmosphere at home, their careful behavior around both parents, as if they sensed something was wrong but couldn't identify what it was. The car turned into the gates of Kensington Palace, and both William and Kate felt their shoulders tense as they approached their private residence. Home had become a place where they had to continue performing, albeit for a different audience. Staff members would be waiting to debrief them about the evening's events, and tomorrow's schedule would require additional coordination. Even in their most private spaces, they seemed unable to escape the demands of their public roles long enough to address their personal problems. Their protection officers efficiently coordinated their arrival, ensuring the couple could move from car to residence with minimal exposure. The familiar routine felt automatic after years of practice, but Kate found herself moving through the motions with mechanical precision, rather than the natural ease that had once characterized their homecomings. William walked slightly ahead of her, a detail that would have been insignificant to observers but felt symbolic of the distance that had grown between them. Inside their private quarters, the contrast with the evening's grand setting was striking. The comfortable furnishings and family photographs created an atmosphere of domestic normalcy that both craved and found somewhat artificial given their current circumstances. Kate set down her evening bag and immediately began removing her jewelry, a ritual that usually signaled her transition from public figure back to wife and mother. Tonight it felt more like shedding a costume after a particularly challenging performance. William loosened his tie and sat down heavily in his favorite chair, suddenly feeling exhausted by the evening's emotional demands. The charity event had been genuinely successful, and he was proud of what they had accomplished together. But the effort required to maintain their public unity while feeling so disconnected privately had been draining in ways that their earlier years of royal duties had never been. He wondered how long they could sustain such an elaborate facade without causing permanent damage to their relationship. Kate moved through their bedroom, hanging up her dress and changing into comfortable clothes with the efficiency of someone eager to shed the trappings of her public role. She caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror and was surprised by how tired she looked despite her makeup artist's skillful work. The reflection showed someone who was functioning well on the surface while struggling underneath, a visual representation of how she had been feeling for months. Their evening routine had become increasingly mechanical, each following familiar patterns while carefully avoiding extended interaction with the other. William reviewed briefing materials for the following day's engagements, while Kate checked messages from their children's school and confirmed details for upcoming family activities. They moved around each other with practiced efficiency, like roommates sharing space rather than spouses sharing a life together. The silence between them was broken only by necessary communications about logistics and schedules. Kate mentioned that Charlotte had a school presentation the following week that one of them should attend. William confirmed his availability and suggested they coordinate with their private secretaries to ensure appropriate coverage. The conversation was polite and efficient, completely lacking the warmth and intimacy that such discussions had once carried when they were planning their lives as genuine partners. As they prepared for bed, both wondered whether they should attempt to address the elephant in the room or continue with the avoidance strategies that had carried them through recent weeks. The evening's success had demonstrated their continued ability to function as a professional team, but it had also highlighted how much effort they were investing in every aspect of their lives except their marriage. The irony wasn't lost on either of them that they could discuss mental health advocacy eloquently while being unable to address their own emotional needs. Kate's bedtime routine included reading updates from the various charities she supported, a habit that usually brought her satisfaction and helped her wind down from demanding days. Tonight, the words on the page seemed to blur together as her mind replayed moments from the evening when she and William had briefly felt like partners again. Those fleeting connections made their current distance feel even more painful, offering glimpses of what they were losing while seeming impossibly difficult to reclaim. William found himself staring at his phone without really processing the emails and messages that had accumulated during their evening out. His mind kept returning to the moment during Kate's speech, when he had felt genuinely proud of her accomplishments and grateful to be her husband. That feeling had been so strong and familiar, reminding him of countless similar moments during their years together, when her strength and grace had filled him with admiration and love. The couple eventually settled into bed on their respective sides, maintaining the physical distance that had become their norm over recent weeks. Both were exhausted by the day's demands, but neither expected to fall asleep easily. The pattern had become familiar, lying awake in the darkness, each lost in private thoughts about their relationship, while being unable to bridge the gap that would allow for honest communication about their struggles. Kate stared at the ceiling and wondered whether she was being unrealistic in her expectations about marriage and partnership. The pressures of their unique situation were undeniable, and perhaps she was expecting too much in hoping for genuine intimacy alongside their public responsibilities. But the memory of what they had once shared made settling for a purely functional relationship feel like giving up on something precious and irreplaceable. William's thoughts followed similar patterns as he lay beside his wife while feeling emotionally isolated from her. He recognized his own contributions to their current problems and felt frustrated by his inability to identify a path forward that didn't require them to acknowledge failures and vulnerabilities that seemed incompatible with their public roles. The weight of royal expectations felt heavier when applied to personal relationships than it did in any professional context. Both Kate and William were aware that their situation couldn't continue indefinitely without reaching some kind of resolution. The strain of maintaining appearances while their private relationship deteriorated was affecting every aspect of their lives, from their interactions with their children to their effectiveness in their royal duties. Yet neither felt equipped to initiate the difficult conversations that might lead to either reconciliation or a more fundamental change in their arrangements. As they finally drifted towards sleep, both hoped that tomorrow might bring some clarity or opportunity to address their problems constructively. The success of the evening's charity event had demonstrated their continued ability to work together when focused on shared goals. Whether that foundation could support the harder work of rebuilding their personal connection remained to be seen, but it offered a small source of hope in an increasingly difficult situation. The following morning arrived with typical London drizzle, creating a gray atmosphere that matched the subdued mood within Kensington Palace. William woke before his alarm, having spent another restless night turning over the events of the previous evening and the growing distance between him and Kate. She was already up, having slipped out of bed early to review her schedule and prepare for another day of carefully orchestrated public appearances. Their morning routine had become a delicate dance of avoidance, each moving through familiar patterns while minimizing direct interaction. Kate stood at their bedroom window, watching the rain streak down the glass while holding a cup of tea that had long since grown cold. Her schedule for the day included visits to 2 schools participating in her mental health initiative, meetings with charity representatives, and preparation for an upcoming documentary about royal family life. The irony of discussing family dynamics for public consumption while her own family struggled privately wasn't lost on her. But such contradictions had become part of the exhausting reality of royal life. Their children's voices could be heard from down the hallway as they prepared for school with help from their nanny. George was practicing his multiplication tables aloud. Charlotte was singing a song she had learned in music class, and Louis was engaging in the animated chatter typical of his age. The sounds of normal childhood activity provided a backdrop of innocence and joy that contrasted sharply with the emotional heaviness their parents were experiencing. William emerged from the bathroom dressed for a day of engagements that would take him to several military installations across southern England. His schedule was deliberately packed, a strategy that had become common for both of them as they sought to fill their days with meaningful work that distracted from their personal struggles. The demands of their roles provided legitimate reasons to spend long hours away from home and from each other, reducing opportunities for the awkward silences and careful conversations that had become their norm. Over breakfast, they reviewed their respective schedules with their private secretaries, coordinating logistics and discussing potential scheduling conflicts. The conversation was professional and efficient, with Kate and William contributing appropriate questions and suggestions, while carefully avoiding any personal commentary about their plans. Their staff members had undoubtedly noticed the changed dynamic between the couple, but royal household training included discretion about such observations. Kate mentioned that she would be dining with her parents that evening, a plan she had made without consulting William. The announcement was delivered casually, as if it were a routine social engagement rather than a deliberate choice to spend the evening away from home. William responded with equal casualness, suggesting that he would use the evening to catch up on correspondence and prepare for his upcoming international travel. Neither acknowledged that they were both actively avoiding opportunities to spend time alone together. Their goodbye that morning was particularly strained, occurring in front of staff members and protection officers who would accompany them to their respective engagements. The brief kiss they exchanged appeared normal to observers, but felt mechanical and empty to both participants. Kate wondered how long they could maintain such performances before the emotional cost became unbearable, while William questioned whether they were already past the point where genuine affection could be recovered. Kate's first school visit took her to a primary school in East London where she was scheduled to observe a mental health awareness program in action. The children's enthusiasm and honesty provided a welcome contrast to the careful artifice that characterized most of her interactions lately. Their questions were direct and genuine, their responses to her presence natural rather than calculated. For a few hours, she could focus entirely on meaningful work without having to navigate the complex emotional undercurrents that had complicated her personal relationships. The program she observed was designed to help young children identify and express their emotions in healthy ways, using art therapy and group discussions to build emotional literacy. Kate found herself genuinely engaged with the work, asking thoughtful questions and offering encouragement to both students and teachers. The visit reminded her why she had chosen to focus her charitable efforts on mental health issues, providing a sense of purpose that had been missing from other areas of her life recently. William's military visits followed a similar pattern of genuine engagement with meaningful work. His conversations with service members about mental health resources and support systems were informed by years of experience and personal commitment to veteran welfare. The authenticity of these interactions contrasted sharply with the performance aspects of his personal life, highlighting how much more comfortable he felt in his professional role than in his role as a husband lately. During a break between engagements, Kate found herself in conversation with a teacher whose own marriage had survived significant challenges. The woman shared insights about the importance of communication and mutual support during difficult periods, advice that felt both relevant and impossible to apply given the unique pressures of royal life. Kate listened carefully while maintaining appropriate boundaries about her own situation, but the conversation planted seeds of thought about potential approaches to her marital problems. William's day included a private meeting with a military chaplain who had extensive experience counseling couples dealing with the stresses of service life and public duty. While their conversation focused officially on support resources for military families, the chaplain's observations about the challenges faced by couples in high-pressure situations resonated personally with William. He found himself wondering whether professional guidance might be beneficial for his own marriage, while simultaneously doubting whether such assistance could be pursued without risking public exposure of their private struggles. Both Kate and William returned to Kensington Palace that afternoon, with their respective schedules completed, successfully but their personal issues unresolved. Kate's planned dinner with her parents provided a legitimate excuse to avoid another evening of awkward silence, while William's correspondence and preparation work offered similar refuge from direct confrontation with their relationship problems. They exchanged brief updates about their day's activities before Kate departed for her family dinner. At dinner with her parents, Kate found herself struggling to maintain her usual cheerful demeanor. Her mother noticed the changes immediately, commenting on Kate's weight loss and tired appearance while carefully avoiding direct questions about her marriage. The Middleton family had always respected boundaries regarding royal privacy, but maternal concern was difficult to disguise. Kate deflected specific inquiries while accepting the comfort of being surrounded by people who loved her unconditionally. Her father engaged her in conversation about the charity work she was pursuing, expressing pride in her accomplishments while making subtle observations about the importance of personal fulfillment alongside public service. The gentle guidance wasn't lost on Kate, who recognized her parents' concern while feeling unable to share the full extent of her struggles. The evening provided emotional support without requiring her to admit the depth of her marital problems. Meanwhile, William spent the evening reviewing briefing materials for his upcoming trip, a task that normally would have included input and discussion with Kate about diplomatic considerations and personal logistics. Working alone highlighted how much he had come to depend on her insights and partnership in his professional life, making their current distance feel like a loss that extended far beyond their personal relationship into his effectiveness as a future king. As the evening progressed, both William and Kate found themselves thinking about the conversation they weren't having and the problems they weren't addressing. The temporary distractions of work and family provided relief from immediate tension, but didn't resolve the underlying issues that were slowly poisoning their relationship. They were both beginning to recognize that avoidance strategies, while temporarily effective, were ultimately making their situation worse rather than better. Kate's return home late that evening was marked by another careful dance around direct interaction. William was still awake, reading in their sitting room when she arrived. They exchanged polite inquiries about their respective evenings before retreating to their separate bedtime routines. The pattern had become so established that it felt almost impossible to break, even though both recognized its destructive nature and yearned for something more genuine and connecting. 3 days later, William was scheduled to depart for his Commonwealth tour, a 2-week journey that had originally been planned as a joint engagement. Before scheduling conflicts provided Kate with a convenient excuse to remain in London. The morning of his departure carried an unusual weight, as both recognized that the physical separation might provide either the space needed to gain perspective on their relationship or the final step toward an irreparable divide. Kate woke early to help William with his final preparations, a gesture that surprised them both given how distant they had become. She moved quietly around their bedroom, gathering items he might have forgotten while he reviewed his briefing materials one final time. The domesticity of the moment felt simultaneously natural and strange, reminding them of countless similar mornings during their earlier years together, when such cooperation had been automatic rather than deliberate. Their children joined them for breakfast, excited about their father's upcoming travels and eager to hear about the countries he would visit. George asked intelligent questions about the Commonwealth nations on William's itinerary, while Charlotte requested that he bring back something special from each location. Louis simply wanted assurance that his father would return home safely, a request that tugged at both parents' hearts and reminded them that their problems affected more than just themselves. The family breakfast provided a buffer against the tension that had characterized recent meals, as the children's presence required both William and Kate to engage naturally with each other while coordinating responses to their questions and requests. For brief moments, they felt like the unified parenting team they had once been, working together to educate and reassure their children while maintaining the family stability that both valued deeply despite their personal struggles. William's departure was scheduled for mid-morning, with media coverage planned at the airport to capture his send-off for the important diplomatic mission. Kate would accompany him to the airport for the official farewell, requiring them to present their final public performance before the separation that both anticipated and dreaded. Their protection officers and private secretaries coordinated the logistics while the couple prepared mentally for another exercise in maintaining appearances while feeling emotionally disconnected. During the drive to the airport, they sat in familiar silence, each lost in private thoughts about the weeks ahead. William wondered whether the distance would provide clarity about what he truly wanted from their relationship or simply make it easier to avoid addressing their problems. Kate found herself hoping that time apart might allow her to rediscover her own identity outside of their marriage, while fearing that the separation might become permanent if they couldn't find a way to reconnect upon his return. The airport farewell was choreographed for maximum positive publicity, with photographers capturing their goodbye kiss and embrace for worldwide distribution. Kate's smile appeared genuine and warm, while William's body language suggested affection and reluctance to leave his family. The images would reinforce public perceptions of their strong marriage, while documenting what both feared might be their last authentic moment of physical intimacy for the foreseeable future. Standing on the tarmac as William's plane prepared for departure, Kate felt an unexpected surge of emotion that caught her off guard. Despite their recent problems, watching her husband leave for an extended period triggered genuine feelings of loss and concern for his safety. The realization that she still cared deeply about his well-being provided a spark of hope that their relationship might not be beyond repair, even if she wasn't sure how to bridge the current divide between them. William paused at the top of the aircraft stairs to wave farewell, catching Kate's eye across the distance. For a moment, the careful facades they had maintained fell away, and they looked at each other with the vulnerability and uncertainty that had been hidden beneath layers of royal protocol and marital politeness. The exchange lasted only seconds, but both felt the significance of seeing genuine emotion in the other's face after weeks of careful performance. As the plane disappeared into the clouds, Kate remained on the tarmac longer than protocol required, lost in thoughts about their relationship in the weeks ahead. Her return to Kensington Palace would mark the beginning of an extended period of solo parenting and independent decision-making, responsibilities she had shared with William throughout their marriage. The prospect felt both liberating and daunting, offering opportunities for self-reflection while highlighting the partnership she was missing. The first few days of William's absence passed in a blur of routine activities and obligations. Kate maintained her schedule of engagements while managing the children's activities and needs, with help from their household staff. The absence of tension from avoiding William was balanced by the loneliness of handling decisions and challenges without her usual partner. She found herself reaching for her phone to share observations or seek his input before remembering that their communication had become strained even before his departure. William's early reports from his tour indicated successful meetings with government officials and positive public response to his visits. His messages to Kate were polite and informative, updating her about his activities while carefully avoiding any personal commentary about missing her or their family. The formal tone of their communications reflected the careful distance they had maintained in person, suggesting that physical separation hadn't immediately improved their ability to connect emotionally. On the fourth day of William's absence, Kate was working in her private office when her private secretary knocked with an urgent message. The woman's expression was serious as she handed over a sealed envelope marked with official government seals. Kate's heart began racing as she recognized the formal documentation that typically accompanied emergency notifications about royal family members traveling abroad. With trembling hands, Kate opened the envelope and read the brief, clinical language that informed her of a security incident during William's visit to a remote Commonwealth location. The message was deliberately vague about details while confirming that the prince was unharmed but that his schedule had been modified as a precautionary measure. Additional information would follow as it became available through official channels. The formal notification triggered an immediate response from palace security and communication staff, who began implementing emergency protocols for managing potential crisis situations involving senior royal family members. Kate found herself at the center of a coordinated response effort, while struggling to process her own emotional reaction to the possibility that William might be in genuine danger thousands of miles away from home. As she waited for additional information about William's situation, Kate realized that her immediate response had been pure fear and concern for his safety, rather than any consideration of how his potential loss might affect her personally or practically. The clarity of her emotional response provided unexpected insight into her true feelings about their marriage, suggesting that beneath all the recent problems and distance, her fundamental love and commitment to him remained intact. Hours later, a call came through from William himself, his voice tired but reassuring as he confirmed his safety and provided additional details about the security incident that had prompted the emergency protocols. Hearing his voice triggered an emotional response in Kate that surprised them both, as tears flowed freely while she expressed relief and concern in words that carried more genuine feeling than any of their recent conversations. William found himself equally moved by Kate's emotional response, recognizing in her tears and words the love and partnership that had sustained them through earlier challenges. The crisis had stripped away the careful politeness and avoidance strategies they had been using, revealing that their fundamental connection remained strong, despite the surface problems that had seemed so insurmountable in recent weeks. Their conversation extended far beyond the necessary exchange of information about his safety and revised schedule, evolving into the first honest discussion they had shared in months about their feelings, fears, and hopes for their relationship. The physical distance that had seemed like another barrier between them actually created a safe space for vulnerability that had been missing from their face-to-face interactions. When William returned home 2 weeks later, he opened the door to find Kate waiting with an expression that combined relief, love, and determination. The experience of potentially losing each other had provided the catalyst they needed to begin addressing their problems honestly, rather than continuing the destructive pattern of avoidance that had been slowly destroying their marriage. Their reunion marked the beginning of the hard work of rebuilding their partnership, but for the first time in months, both believed that their love was worth fighting for.